Alright. Hey guys, I'm Natalie, and this week we're going to be reading some bad poetry. So I didn't want to be just like outwardly mean in this, so I am going to try to give some genuine critiques that are hopefully constructive criticism. I have no illusion that she's going to watch this video, but if anybody who is an aspiring writer is watching this, then hopefully some of what I can say is helpful in some way. I did take a class last semester where I had to critique a lot of poetry, and in that I also had to learn how to critique poetry. I'm not extremely qualified for this, but I'm a little bit more qualified than the average person. I also wanted to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with writing or enjoying bad poetry. If it speaks to you, then it's art, and it doesn't matter if it's good or not. That said, let's get into roasting these poems and critiquing these poems, because I don't want this to be super negative. I want to add some positivity in there. Also, I don't think Gabbie is really a good person, so I don't really feel bad for saying mean things about her. Criticizing her poetry is just so inconsequential. She's been doing a lot worse than writing bad poetry, so this book is called Adolescence, and it came out in 2017. I said I was going to be nice with this one. I have to be nice. I didn't say I was going to be nice. I said I was going to be helpful. That's not always the same thing. Constructive criticism isn't mean, and it isn't nice either. It's just constructive criticism. Concealer. I wear makeup because I have acne. I have acne because I wear makeup. It's just yeah. There's no artistry in what she's saying. It doesn't do anything. She's not saying anything with it. And I think that the topic of, putting on makeup and getting acne and then using makeup to cover up your acne is not terrible. It could be used to kind of show this cyclical, creating your own problems. You make this cycle of problems for yourself. And that's something that would make a good poem, I think. I'm not even sure if that's actually what the poem means, or if she really is just talking about her concealer. Iron. When I was young, my mom used to check if the iron was hot by touching it. And I don't know. I just feel like there's a metaphor in there somewhere. Yeah, there is a metaphor in there somewhere. When you find it, make a poem with it. There is so much to be said with that concept, especially because it is her mom doing a housewife kind of activity, a mundane activity. You can talk about the sexist structure of society and the way that women are expected to do these tasks that are physically harmful to them in order to help out the lives of their husbands. There is so much you can say with that, and there's so much depth to that concept and to that metaphor that it's absolutely mind-boggling to me that she picked out that concept and just didn't do anything with it. And it doesn't even have to apply, it doesn't even have to be a feminist poem, just the way that people have to somehow hurt themselves in order to, the means to an end, It can be applied to so many situations, just to so much social commentary and artistic commentary, and she just does nothing with it. It's like her brainstorm before she wrote the poem. This is what you would write down in your notebook, and then later you would go back and be oh yes, I had this idea last night, and now I'm gonna write a poem with it. It could have been really good, but it's bad. It is bad. It's bad. Relative. Time is relative. Beauty is relative. Family is relatives. When I say I don't like this poem, a few nights ago I took 2 melatonin gummies. It's 10 milligrams, I think, and the recommended is only 5, so, and still I woke up at 4 a.m. thinking about this poem. I have never in my life read anything in which I completely understand and agree with every individual sentence, but it could not tell you what the whole thing means. So let's break it down. Time is relative is a reference to Einstein's theory of relativity. Anytime you use the exact phrase, like a very famous phrase in your work, it's gonna make the reader think about that other work. So it is a reference, even if she didn't intend for it to be a reference. Time is not relative in the same way that beauty is relative. In very simple terms, Einstein's theory of relativity states that time is relative to gravity. Gravity can physically have an effect on time in a higher dimension. Saying that time is relative is like saying a plane is fast relative to a car, you know? It's a physical, observable relativity. Beauty is relative is talking about the perception of beauty. So like some people like blondes, some people like brunettes. That's relative, but it's not something that you can quantify. It's not something you can measure the way that physical relativity is in terms of physics. Beauty is a concept, and people say time is a concept, but that doesn't really apply to Einstein's theory of relativity because he's talking about time as a physical property of the universe, not the experience of time by people. So time being relative refers to physical ability, a physical change in time. Beauty is relative is a reference to personal perception, which is not measurable. Family is relatives. I'm gonna lose my mind. I'm gonna lose it. Family is relatives, okay. Family is relative. The word relatives is just a different form of the word relative. Family is relative also in a physical sense. You can quantify the relativity of your family through DNA. You can get a DNA test and it'll tell you whether or not someone is relative to you, whether or not they are your relative. It's just, this poem gets me so heated because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. It's just wordplay. Just wordplay. That's it. That's the only reason she wrote this, is to be clever, because the words are the same, but they mean different things. But that's just what words do sometimes. Sometimes they mean different things in different orders. So what I would do to improve this, because I have to check myself, is scrap this whole thing and write something that makes sense. Sorry. That was mean, but I'm serious, it doesn't make any sense. At the very least, a poem should be readable. Love boat. Next time you pour everything you have into someone, make sure they don't have any leaks. I think the drawing is really cute, and I think it's a really compelling image. I wouldn't say it's extremely original, but it does clearly have an intention. And it does clearly, it's saying something. And the message of the drawing is very clear without the poem. The poem itself, though, just doesn't have a whole lot of substance. And I don't think it really enriches the drawing, which is weird because usually you add illustrations to a poetry book to enrich the poem. In this case, I feel like the drawing is stronger than the poem. And the poem is actually devaluing the drawing. Ugh. OCD. I'm not the best at organizing thoughts, but no one's better at organizing pots. I'm ineffective at handling stress, but I'm an expert at handling mess. Life is kind and tough to handle, but it's a breeze to dust a mantle. The fear of losing control is mighty, but at least your closet's neat and tidy. Here's the thing. This is one of the poems that I have a problem with for, like, good reason. A lot of the other ones I'm just like, oh, this is bad, but, like, this poem actually is just, like, cheapening mental illness. Like, OCD is a mental illness, and it's... My dad has OCD, even though he refuses to admit it. And it's, like, debilitating. Like, neat freak is not synonymous with OCD. So her saying that, like, she's a neat person, she's a neat freak, isn't the same as her being OCD. She's not OCD, she just likes things to be neat. I'll talk about the other one that's bad for better reasons this time. I'm gonna warn you, this one's really bad. And I say that not as in like it's written badly, like it's really bad. Cut. Her hand trembled around the sharp, cold metal as she looked at her distorted face in the mirror. Just do it, she told her reflection. Don't do it, her reflection replied. Come on, P-word. She shouted at the glass. You're going to regret this, you always do, the glass warned back. No one gives a shit if I do it, she reminded them both. This is a permanent decision based on a temporary emotion, the mirror pleaded. Hair grows back, dumbass. You think? Suicide or self-harm as the punchline for a badly written poem is genuinely upsetting. Like the first time I read that, I had to just put my computer down for a minute, take a break, because it's like, I don't know what went through her head that made her think that was funny, or even just morally correct, like morally good. I don't know what made her think that was a good idea, especially with an audience as young as hers, to be just like devaluing suicide. It makes absolutely no sense to me that a grown woman can write that, read it through, and decide that it's okay, and then profit off it after she sells it for money to kids. You can write a good poem about self-harm and about mental illness. A lot of people do. A lot of poets, like I would say almost most poets that are like very famous, had some kind of mental disorder and wrote about it in ways that didn't cheapen or devalue that mental disorder. It's just so gross and so slimy to be like, Luty, you thought I was gonna kill myself? Idiot. You're an adult woman. You're a grown woman, and you're writing this for children to read. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. It's really bad. Serious critique for that one. I'm not saying that self-harm and suicide is off limits for poets. I think you can definitely write a very good poem about self-harm and about suicide and about these very intense topics, but you have to do it with a little bit of respect. Don't treat it like a punchline. I'm gonna find one that'll like lighten the mood. Alright, she has this one that is called Web, that I think is actually her best one. It's kind of long, so I'm just gonna read like I'll read 2 stanzas. Web. The dislike button is my biggest critic. Am I a good person? Check my analytics. I'm lucky, I know. I don't mean to misinform. I just need a moment. I don't need to perform. I realized I'm blessed, but if I may spin it, when you're you for a living, you can't take a minute to process your thoughts of confusion or sorrow. We were yesterday's stars of tomorrow. The pursuit of happiness sounds obscene when your source of joy is numbers on a screen. So tell me, what's my worth today? Do you love me as much as yesterday? Quantify me, give me my rating. I hope you can forgive my clickbaiting. But the conundrum is this life that's conditioned to treat every day as if it's an audition for a part I'm not even sure I want. This one feels most personal, and I think that's what makes it better than the other ones. She is genuinely saying something about her own life and about her feeling of needing validation through numbers and through views, and it feels like it does come from herself and not from like Tumblr. It doesn't feel like a Tumblr text post or like a tweet from the Common White Girl account back in 2015. It feels like something that she genuinely does experience and that she struggles with. Some of the rhymes are a bit not that strong. Some of the words could be better, but like they could use an editor. This is one of her most original works, and that's why it's good, is because she's taking what's actually happening to her and putting it through an artistic lens. I'm kind of convinced they didn't have an editor for this book. Like nobody read this before they sent it to print. I know I already said that Relative was her worst poem, but we've got a contender. Oh, positive. I donated blood today. Feels good to finally be someone's type. I think I read that on Tumblr when I was 13, which is crazy because I was 13 4 years before this book came out. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. It's just so bad. It's just not good at all. It's not creative, it's not artistic, it's not commentary. Some criticism, some constructive criticism. I think you could use this concept. Maybe you can have this like interaction where like someone's like, hey, I think you're my type. And we go through the poem thinking it's a romantic interaction, but then at the end we find out that it's a blood transfusion or something like that. I think that'd be good. Maybe not good, but it would be better. I actually wrote my own poem to close us out. I don't know my blood type. I got blood drawn for testing 2 weeks ago. I tested positive for a thyroid hormone deficiency. Feels good to finally have something positive in my life. So my main criticism is that a lot of her stuff is either unoriginal. Well, okay, most of her stuff is unoriginal. Like, it wouldn't matter if she's a bad writer, if she had an interesting concept, because then at the very least it would be interesting. So like, it doesn't have to be well written if it's creative and if it's thought-provoking. But it's not thought-provoking, it's not original, and it's not well written, so it's just 0 for 3. Like, okay, you write bad poetry, who cares? But I do have a real world issue with this book, and that is that she didn't deserve it. And there are thousands, literally thousands of people out there who were, you know, aspiring poets or aspiring writers who would kill to get a book deal like this, and they can't just because the industry is very competitive. Even though they would be deserving of it and even though they would actually do a good job with it, they couldn't get, like, this book deal went to Gabbie Hanna when it could have gone to somebody else who would have done a better job, just because she has this wide following and she has more of a chance of getting a lot of money. The company that made this book didn't really care about the quality and just wanted her to like pop them out so that they had enough to fill up a book, and then they could sell it and make a really good amount of money off of it. Probably, I don't want to estimate money because I don't know how. This book could have gone to someone else who would have done a really good job and would have been more appreciative of the fact that they had a book, and with Gabbie Hanna, it was just kind of given to her when other people have worked really hard and still not gotten it. And on that note, that's gonna do it for this video. If you liked it, let me know. I lost so many brain cells doing this, so please like the video. Bye. It's just not good.